Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about a specific friggin' book. Of course, you already know, we're talking about Bright We Burn by Kiersten White. So this is the final book in the Conqueror's Saga trilogy. The first book being Anti-Darken, which you guys know I love. The second book, Now I Rise. I'll talk a little bit about these briefly. So with Anti-Darken, we get introduced to our main character, Lada, and her brother, Radu. This is YA historical fiction. A lot of people get confused thinking it's fantasy. I think I called it fantasy a few times and just was like, wait, it's not fantasy at all. This is about Vlad the Impaler, but it's a gender bend. So instead of Vlad, we have Ladislav or Lada. So we start off in Anti-Darken with Lada and her brother Radu. And this isn't too spoiler, it happens very early. Basically, they get sent to a different land. And I love this so much because number one, I like the writing style and everything. And some people feel like it's a little slow. I like political intrigue type stuff more often than not. And this is very heavy with political intrigue and political maneuverings and all of that. And I enjoyed it. And I love Lada as a character. I love Radu as well for very different reasons. Radu is like a precious being that we all need to protect at all costs because he's the sweetest and he just wants like affection and love. And then we have Lada, and Lada she's not like, I tend to enjoy like unlikable characters, but sometimes they're not really, they're like, oh, she's just sassy and feisty and whatever, but like really she's a softie too. Lada is a bad bitch, and she's just a bitch. She's mean. She's mean. In Now I Rise, the story continues, and Lada is, again, political maneuverings, military maneuverings, trying to get this throne. And in this one, you see a lot more of her just ruthlessness come out. That brings us to Bright We Burn. So I took down some notes, and I did tab this up a bit. In this one, I felt like Lada was being like a little stupid. She was being very reckless and she's just so bullheaded and stubborn and set in her ways. And it was just very apparent in this one. And there was a few times where I was like, okay, girl, like, I'm gonna need you to calm down. And like, not even calm down, but like slow down and really think about what you're doing. But that's not her character at all. I'm going to be spoilery talking about this book because I can't really have enough to say about it without being a little spoilery. So I also love that Radu got away from Mahmed finally, because holy hell, like him in the first book, it kind of irritated, like Mahmed I didn't like him, and I just saw him using Radu, and Radu is just the most precious being ever. And it really irritated me that Mahmed was just using him. And then in the second book, in Now I Rise, he really was using him. Like, it just made me so upset for Radu. I'm so glad he got away from him here. And the whole time I was just like, come on, Cyprian, come back, dude. Like, you guys have to be together, because Cyprian and Radu made me so happy in the second book. Like, when that all was like blossoming for a second there, I was so jazzed. And then Cyprian had to leave. And when Fatima and Nazira come to Wallachia, and she's telling him like, oh, go to this tower, blah, blah, whatever you do, like you have to go to this tower in an hour or whatever. And she's like, you deserve every happiness. And I put my note and I said, Cyprian? I was like, oh my God, is it him? And it freaking was. And I wrote, yay, with little hearts. I was so excited. And then when Lada gets captured, that whole thing, I mean, like, this is what I mean, like, with her being stupid. Like, I feel like previously, in the other books, she would have seen that coming. And I think in this one, she just was getting so reckless and wild because she was, like, getting so close to her goals and getting, like, frantic for her goals. So, like, when she went, I was like, dude, this is clearly a setup. And then it was, and she got captured. But then when she was captured and she was, like, getting sick, and they're like, oh, she could barely eat what they gave her. Why he was choosing poison, she did not know. I wrote, is she pregnant? And sure enough, she was pregnant. Oh, and here I put, she's really bad at reading people, which makes sense because she's not an empathetic, personable person. But like the whole thing with Stefan, where she was like, ooh, I don't trust him, blah, blah, blah. She's like, let's keep an eye on him. And then he shows up and he's the one that saves her. And I'm like, you suck so bad at reading people. And speaking of Stefan, I was kind of like at the conclusion, I was like, I'm kind of upset that this guy wasn't a bigger character because he's a freaking badass. Like, you don't need this whole big army if you have him. She literally just told him like, oh, go kill those 2 guys in a castle, in a protected castle. She's like, they can't keep living, like, go get them. And then they show up dead a few days later, like, because he kills them. Like, he's such a good spy assassin, it's out of control. So when I saw that, I was like, why did she need to do all this other crap? She could have just had Stefan going around secretly killing everybody she wanted. Like, it was a bummer about all the people dying in Lada's circle in this one. Like, pretty much everybody in her circle died. And it was a bummer, but this one was less emotional for me. I don't know why, really. I think I was just so worried about Radu and Lada that like I didn't really care who else died, because I was like, or like Nazira and Fatima also, I was very concerned about them. As long as they all lived, I was cool. And Cyprian too. And at the ending, I was kind of bummed that Lada's like death scene was just mentioned like after the fact. That it was like after she had already died, and they just, oh, she died on the battlefield, like whatever. I kind of wished that we had like been there with her for that. Her thoughts, like in final moments, after living this grand, like conqueror life, I think would have been really cool to see. And it was a little wah-wah that we didn't, that it was just like, oh, she's dead, here, we're here for her memorial or funeral or whatever. But I still felt like this was a very good conclusion to the trilogy. You knew Lada was not gonna live a long life. Like, that just wasn't gonna happen. And I'm glad that it wasn't at Radu's hands, and I'm glad it wasn't at Mahmed's hands either, but I still just don't really care about Mahmed. He's not like, I don't know. It was so obvious how much he was using Radu the whole time, through the whole series. But yeah, I thought it was a good ending to the trilogy. And it kind of felt like it could be open-ended for another trilogy or another series because of Lada's child that she had, that Radu and Fatima and Nazira and Cyprian were like raising, this daughter. And I was kind of like, could we have a series with her, please? Because that could be pretty interesting. So yeah, if you didn't see my recent wrap up, on my 1 to 10 scale, I gave this a 7.5, which translates to 4 Pachinicorns. I probably would have rated it a little bit higher had her death scene been in the ending. It just felt like her death was an afterthought. I guess if I had felt a little bit more of an emotional connection to what was happening in this one, because I just didn't as much. Still love it. This is still one of my favorite trilogies, and I highly recommend. Okay, that is all for now, guys. Hope you enjoyed this little kind of quick chat, and I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.